Let's talk about free speech. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution states that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the freedom of the press. There was a time when most Americans, both on the left and the right, agreed that this was a good thing. The ability to communicate freely without fear of retribution from one's government was crucial to the preservation of a free, democratic society. Today, caught up in the hyper-tribal world of social media, many people seem to have forgotten the importance of free speech. Elon Musk's attempted purchase of Twitter, based on his expressed desire to open the platform up to more free speech, triggered a full-scale freakout in the chambers of power, with leaked conversations from Twitter employees expressing fear that a Musk takeover would threaten the outcome of the next election. Blue-checked experts, influential celebrities, and elite members of the laptop class are all howling for more content moderation, better known as censorship. Using contradictory logic, they demand that the government save democracy by limiting the speech that certain citizens are allowed to utter in the digital public square. Censorious politicians are calling for more government control of social media. And the Biden administration has even sought to create a Ministry of Truth within the Department of Homeland Security, charged with the Orwellian task of determining fact from fiction in online speech. After Twitter and other social media platforms removed a true story from the New York Post about Hunter Biden's laptop, we might be tempted to think that all this censorship is purely about partisan politics. But there's a cultural component to this as well. Defenders of social media censorship argue that private companies have a right to choose what they allow on their platforms. And that's true. But it's also the case that a society which values free speech above and beyond the narrow confines of the First Amendment is eminently desirable. And a society where individuals feel stifled from expressing their ideas can hardly be one where art, science, innovation, and even democratic give and take can be expected to flourish. Cancel culture demands that unpopular or uncomfortable ideas be forcibly silenced. Comedians Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock recently faced physical assault as retribution for the crime of telling a joke. The ACLU, formerly one of the fiercest protectors of free speech, used to go to court to protect the rights of Nazis to air their awful ideas in public. Not because they agreed with any of those ideas, but precisely because unpopular speech is what needs protecting. If what you're saying is popular, there's no need to defend it. Unfortunately, the ACLU has since caved to the idea that it's more important to police and prohibit unacceptable speech than to nurture open dialogue in a free society. Without the ACLU and other legacy defenders of free speech standing up to censors, what should we do about speech we find disagreeable? Maybe we should let it be said and heard. In 1991, journalist and free speech absolutist Christopher Hitchens conducted a televised interview with John Metzger, a self-confessed white nationalist and racist. Throughout the interview, Hitchens remained cordial and allowed his guest to speak at length, while making it clear that he found Metzger's views abhorrent. Hitchens' ability to have the interview aired without censorship or threats of harm allowed the American public to hear for themselves how truly monstrous the ideas of neo-Nazism actually were. Hearing bad ideas for what they are, with the freedom to understand and reject them, is far more effective than attempting to ban them. Censor it, and you just might give bad people with bad ideas new credibility, a bigger platform based on victimhood. Unchecked speech and open argument is how we figure out the truth of things. History teaches us that some things anointed experts denounce as crazy today may well end up being the accepted truth tomorrow. From the heliocentric model of the solar system, to the germ theory of medicine, to the invention of the airplane. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, government experts told us that the virus spread via contact with surfaces. So we disinfected our groceries and our mail. We were told that it was dangerous to go outside, so we stayed in. We were told that cloth masks would protect us and our loved ones, and that new vaccines would prevent infection. Anyone who challenged these ideas was typically deplatformed from social media and denounced as a dangerous conspiracy theorist. And yet, all of these claims made with such certainty by government health officials turned out to be wrong. When speech is policed, even in the name of truth or compassion, one of the first things to get banned is criticism of those in power. We've seen this throughout history, not just in notorious dictatorships, but here at home. When John Adams became the second president of the United States, just a few years after the ratification of the Bill of Rights, he started jailing his political opponents and critics using the Alien and Sedition Acts. In the 1860s, vocal opponents of Abraham Lincoln were imprisoned. Richard Nixon kept an enemy list and sought to spy on those who criticized him. J. Edgar Hoover used the FBI to surveil and intimidate and silence Dr. Martin Luther King. Sometimes the most dangerous speech is deemed so precisely because it is fundamentally true and a threat to tyrants in power. Today, the Biden administration has empowered the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies with new powers to find and censor what they deem dangerous speech.
We are in regular touch with these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff, but also members of our COVID-19 team. Given, as Dr. Murthy conveyed, this is a big issue of misinformation, specifically on the pandemic. In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. As
much as some like to blame social media companies for censorship, it is clear that powerful politicians are making tech companies an offer they can't refuse. Here, for example, is how Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, tasked with stomping out COVID misinformation, put it in one particularly explicit tweet. Does this sound like a threat to you? Let me reorganize the Surgeon General's point for clarity. Misinformation sways elections. If they don't do something about it, social media companies should shut down their platforms. Like I said, an offer they can't refuse. Supporters of President Biden, happy for him to use the power of his office to silence his critics, are forgetting how recently that position was occupied by Donald Trump, a man they would most certainly believe is capable of using that same power against them. So before demanding that government officials censor harmful misinformation, ask yourself this: do you trust your least favorite politician with the power to determine what you, a mere citizen, is allowed to hear or say? Will Elon Musk or alternative social media platforms or even blockchain technologies save free speech in the digital public square from censors, public or private? I hope so, but it won't be easy. Demands from all sides to censor speech they don't like has quickly become the new normal. The real burden of restoring and defending free speech is on you and me, a responsibility that comes with living in a free society. The nationwide argument we are now engaged in, the very kind of debate that wouldn't be possible without the freedom of speech, is fundamentally important. The debate itself helps us realize just how essential free expression and the right to speak truth to power really is.